Hey, welcome back to Wrestling Travels Lockdown Sessions, presented to you, as always, from my good friends over at True Heel Heat Wrestling in New York City. Stuie, I always tell these guys, if you want to hear a great podcast, something new, go check out True Heel Heat. Then I would always say, if you want to check out number two, check out Wrestling Travels podcast. But I'm going to say, if you want to try out number two, you got to check out Stuie's wrestling podcast. So, Stuie Palmer, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the kind words, Justin. Appreciate it. It's good to get on. I've seen some of the lockdown sessions over the past few months. Doing a great job, mate. It's great. It's really, really good. That's testament to you, that is.
Thank you. The lockdown sessions, I don't know if it's happened over in the UK, but over here in the States, the USDA, the U.S. Drug Administration, has officially licensed my lockdown sessions as a good cure for insomnia. So we got, not only do we have good guests, but, in case you have trouble, we got the soothing tones to put you to sleep. No, but seriously, thank you for the kind words. So Stu's Wrestling Podcast, I'm gonna start off like my journalistic integrity has me. I want to start off at the beginning, but I'm going to be all over the place. How long has Stu's Wrestling Podcast been a thing?
Since the inception, it would have been January 2019, and we went right the way through to October of last year. I had a little bit of a break. I was a little bit, I don't know, I think I lost the confidence a little bit. It was a mistake on my part as well. It's got to be said. I shouldn't have stopped it for those 3-4 months. But we came back in January 2020, and I've got a guy editing. He's a freelance videographer over here, and he does a great job, and he's been really helpful, and he knows people within the industry and the business and stuff of that nature. So it's been going good. But yeah, 2019 was the inception of the podcast, to go back to that.
Awesome. So how did it all start? What made you go, hey, I want to do a wrestling podcast?
I lost my nan the year before, and we'd spoken at length about it for a while, probably about 18 months or so prior to her leaving us. And she said, just go for it, give it a go. I was like, and I left it for a bit. And then obviously 10 months later, I just thought, we're going to do it. And that was that, mate. That was the inception of the show, as it were, as it is.
Was Nan a wrestling fan?
No, she wasn't. I thought you were going to ask that. But she knows I've had a passion for wrestling since 1990. So she understood. She was a big soccer football fan. But yeah, as it pertains to wrestling, I showed a little bits and bobs over the years. She said it was good. Whether she really meant that, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of my grandfather was a huge was a wrestling fan, so kind of got, and I don't know either if he was a wrestling fan, if he just put up with it for me, but we would watch it together. Now, podcast, the average person watching this show or listening to a podcast goes, I can do that. Easy. Mm-hmm. Easy. I'm a wrestling fan. I can think of stuff, but I don't know about you, but from where I'm at, there is a lot of, even though it doesn't look like it on my end, there's a lot of preparation and stuff that goes into we don't simply get on the phone and go, hey, Steve Austin, come on my podcast. Like, it's a lot of work going in to getting guests. And then, like, I'm always all I really try to do on my end, I'm nowhere near the professional that you and some of the others. I merely try not look like an idiot with what I'm saying. But I mean, there's a lot of work goes into a podcast. Wouldn't you say?
You're doing well. You're doing well, mate. You shouldn't knock yourself at all.
Well, no. I'm just saying that's my preparation. Try not to look, because I'm looking up people on Wikipedia all night, going, okay, make sure I ask this. But yeah, I'm just saying it's a lot of preparation.
Oh yeah. In terms of prep for it, yeah. And it's knowing where the boundary is as such. I always check with people prior to interviewing. That's one thing. Am I okay to ask? Is there anything off limits, basically? Pre-interview, when I've messaged people, it's just best to be safe and sorry and not piss somebody off, and it, Justin, at the end of the day. 100%. That goes for everything in life, doesn't it? It's not just necessarily what we're doing with the shows. Yeah, just be cordial to the people, isn't it, that are coming on, because we respect them so highly, and it's just a pleasure to have them on. the kid in me loves it, absolutely loves it. Like, you know, I never would have thought I'd be doing this.
No, and what do you, there's certain people, like I had Nikita Koloff on, and we talked about having off camera. I talked about having Santina Morella, but there's certain people, and I think almost everybody, even if they're just somebody on the independents that people haven't discovered, I've got a certain nervousness that kind of goes on beforehand. But especially with some of the bigger names, I feel my heart beating, and then it seems to go well. Do you get the same thing?
But have you been on site? Have you been at the conventions doing the episodes? Have you actually been there with them? Because obviously I'm always just camera to camera, aren't I? You know, having that nervousness.
Yeah, I've done a couple. I've got a really good Brian Cage story that I'll tell. I'll tell you right now. First time telling it on camera. Now, and I don't want to offend Brian Cage because Brian Cage has been really awesome with Wrestling Travel. But I've been going down to Warrior Wrestling the last 3 weeks in Chicago, their Stadium Series. First, in August 7th of this year, we had the first crowd at a wrestling show. So the biggest crowd in North America since the pandemic. And the main event was going to be Brian Cage versus Jeff Cobb. So they're out there signing their autographs, and I'm like, hey, Brian, we are live blogging over in the UK. Shout out to Danny from Wrestling Travel, who handles all that. I said, can I, and usually up to, if you've kept an eye on our Twitter, I would try to get quotes and pictures and stuff on our Twitter prior to that. So I said, would you mind just saying a few words before your match? And he goes, yeah. I get him on, and he goes, yeah, it's a first. I'm not even mad about Jeff Cobb. I'm just so happy to be out here, blah, blah, blah. Awesome stuff. So 3 weeks ago, whatever, the first Stadium Series, I'm like, dude, I'm going to go right up to Brian Cage. I only go up to these guys during this fan fest time. I wouldn't dare do it in the locker room or anything. I just go, hey, we're live blogging again. Cage, could we get you to talk about your match tonight? And he goes, I don't really have much to say. Okay, I'm like, you don't have to do it. And he goes, yeah, go ahead. And I film it. And he does a pretty good job of going, hey, because he was supposed to be fighting Alex Zane. He ended up having a hell of a match with Benjamin Carter. But he said, yeah, this other guy's in there, blah, blah, blah. So then I said to him, this was my big mistake, Stuie. I said, hey, could I get you on camera just saying, a blurb about Wrestling Travel, kind of putting us over? And he's kind of staring through me. And I go, dude, if you don't want to do it, or you contractually can't do it, then it's no problem. And he goes, and I popped for this big time. I laughed, and I shouldn't have laughed, but it was perfect because he had this Clint Eastwood, like, scratchy voice with it. And I said, if you can't do it, and he goes, oh no, I could do it. I'm just trying to figure out a reason why I would. And I was like, okay. I'm like, you have a good night, sir. And I haven't talked to him since, but there's not, and
yeah,
mere mortals like us, or big freaking stars like Brian Cage, we all have days when we don't want to talk to anybody. And man, I just honestly, I wish I would have had that on film. Like, I wish I would have just shown, because he was like, oh, I could do it. I'm just trying to figure out why I would want to. And I'm like, you have a good day, sir. So, and I still love Brian Cage. It was nothing personal about anything about it, but I was like, but that's the thing. You and I have learned to have thick skin like that, because it's just, man, I've seen so many people now, and granted, we'll get back to your interview. I feel like you're
no.
But we work a lot with Alicia Etude. She is wonderful, and in fact, if you haven't had her on, we'll try to arrange that. And if you're a company right now looking to hire somebody who would be a great spokesperson, great social media rep, Alicia is bar none. Professional, above and beyond, and we'll just do everything for your company. But I've been sitting at the Wrestling Travel table with her, and podcasting will just come up camera already on, just like interface. So Alicia, how are you doing? And I'm like, why would you do that to somebody? Like, I wouldn't do it to a guy. I wouldn't do it to anybody because I would go, excuse me, can I just get a word? Wrestling travel? Because that way, if they don't want to do it, they can say, hey, listen, next time, or I'm not ready, or yeah, sure, what do you want to, kind of prep. And I've just seen too many people do that. And that's why, like that thing with I could imagine if I would have just stuck my camera in Brian Cage's face.
Oh, my days. But yeah, it wouldn't have been very...
No, he's not
I think the man might have lost it. So it's just a respect thing. Even I've seen it at WrestleCon over the years. When companies have been over there, obviously to get interviews, and disrespectful. Only like a handful of them. I've seen it firsthand, queuing up to pay to see someone, and it's just like, go in there and be respectful. Don't just dart in with your camera in the face, as you're saying. Just going back to what you're saying, it's a two-way street.
They had a fan fest set up at Warrior where people had paid to get in the fan fest, and they would get a picture and an autograph. So even if I'm in line for Cage and I notice people jumping up behind me, I'd be like, hey, you go ahead. I'm just waiting until it clears out to go, hey, can I get? And then I've had a few people, Tessa Blanchard very respectfully said, I actually asked her, could I get a few words? Because we're live blogging in the UK. And she pulled her mask down and she goes, do I have to? And I go, no, you don't have to at all. And she's like, I'm not feeling it. And it's just, and they traveled all day from Mexico. I said, no, absolutely. You don't have to do anything. But I've been pleasantly surprised by people that, Joey Janela. Why did that surprise me? I don't know. But because usually it's hard for me to go, all right, now I'm at this part of my career where I'm sticking a camera in somebody's face. So I'm like, hey, can I get you? And he goes, yeah, no problem. Okay, well, can I get you to say a few nice words with wrestling? Yeah, absolutely. And was that good enough? Like a pro? Like, yeah. But there's been days where I probably could have caught him and he would have been like, I just not feeling it, man. It's like just like a normal person like you or I, I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah, at least she said to you, because she's had a lot of bad press, hasn't she, through the times?
Yeah, and I've just seen it
more recent times.
And I've seen like Tessa had actually said to me, she goes, and I'm not betraying any confidence. She just said, thank you, because things have been kind of rough lately. And I'm like, no, I understand. I just thought, hey,
she probably just guarded Justin. With what
100%.
You know what I mean? Because you read that much shite on the internet, it's just ridiculous. It's not
heard
legitimate sources half the time.
Right, that's the thing. You never know. That's why I always hear about, oh, this person's a jerk. Don't meet them. And I'd heard like, oh, Tessa can be difficult, and maybe she can, but she was an absolute sweetheart to me. Ric Flair. Now, I didn't interview Ric Flair, but just meeting Ric Flair, I'd heard you don't want to do it. He could be a dick. And I was like, I'd always said to myself, if Ric Flair is within 200 miles of where I'm at, I want to go meet him. Before in 2015, I was out in Pennsylvania, drove out, paid top dollar to do. I got to go to the show. There was a question and answer, and there was a meet and greet with Ric Flair. I'm doing it. And I was like, shit. Okay. I just want to be like, just get my picture taken, say hi, get an autograph, and get out of there. He couldn't have been nicer. Come on in. In fact, the rule was they would take your picture and then they would post it on social media, and then you'd have to download it and all this stuff. But you could get like a certain number of things. You could get like 3 things signed. So I went through and they gave you 2 8x10s. He signed them. And then later on, like half hour later, I'm walking by to go to the restroom. Well, Flair is still in this autograph room. And this big bodyguard guy there, I go, hey, listen. I said, I only did 2 things to get signed. I go, is there any way I could just get a picture on my phone? Because as you know, social media, it's all about, I got to have that Facebook profile picture with Ric Flair. And he goes, well, I'd have to ask him. And I said to the guy, just yes, but don't piss him off. Like, really don't piss him off. And Flair's like 20 feet away, and he goes, I heard you. Come on down. And we took a picture on my phone. I mean, he was a sweetheart.
I saw him at WrestleCon 2015. Same year as you. So yeah, we were in San Jose. And as I say, you hear the things, you meet the guy, an absolute sweetheart. He was great. And Scott Steiner, should I say, I was like panicking before I went to go meet him. And he was lovely. He was brilliant. Like, quick chat with him. And just, they are human at the end of the day, Justin. It's the only way I can.
Yeah, no, that's the way I did too. Like, I get nervous before doing I get nervous before doing the Zoom like this, and then I'm thinking, listen, if anything goes really bad, I'm in control of just not sharing the footage. So that's what I kind of get. But I do get Nikita Koloff was a guy who I was nervous because I grew up watching him. And I didn't hear much about him. Of course, he did the Russian character. And then here we are an hour and 10 minutes later into the stuff. And, you know, I was never afraid that Nikita was going to yell at me, but I was afraid that I wouldn't have enough material to, but we just had a conversation like you and I are about wrestling. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Who are some of your,
sorry, I keep jumping in. No, ask me the question again. Sorry, it was me. I
was going to ask, who are some of your most notable guests or some of your favorites that you've had?
Oh man, I had Tyson Kidd, TJ Wilson. Big shout out to Richie Sorrentino and Barry Horowitz for that. And we did it over a two-part, the one and only two-part for Stu's Wrestling Podcast, might I add. And we had an absolute blast, me and him. And I'd asked him a question he'd never been asked before. That's always the worry. Are we going to go over the same ground? You've been asked it 1,000 times. And it was just about him. I just asked, like, how was it crafting your moveset, you know, and developmental? And he loved it. And you don't expect sometimes that to be the response, do you? Because you think,
right, no.
He's probably heard this time and time again, but he hadn't. And then it makes you think, just ask anything sometimes, because you just never know. You just never know. I don't think like that now, because lo and behold, he loved the question. And he followed me and added me afterwards. So I must have made a good impression.
That's big.
I must have made a good impression, Justin.
No, that's fantastic. That's great. Yeah, he's a great. Just too bad his career got cut short.
Oh man, and we did.
What a great, yeah.
I asked prior to the interview, just going back to the word respect with him. I just said, "Am I allowed to ask about the injury?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course you are. It's not a problem. I will speak about it." He spoke at length about it. Actually, I wasn't expecting him to go through as much as he did. And just glad he's producing and he's backstage, because he was a hell of a talent. He was on a good run with Cesaro at the time. They were killing it, weren't they? They found one another, didn't they? And it was just like, I love them two tagging together, man. Like most of the WWE universe, it was just it was incredible. But just down to earth guy, and I'm a big Hart family mark. Obviously, Bret Hart is still my favourite to this day. So it's just nice to hear about the Hart family. You know, some of his stories. Very honest, very open guy. Just lovely guy. I'm trying to think of other guys I've had on. Dwayne Gilbert, absolutely brilliant. We had an absolute ball. James Ellsworth. So we had the Baltimore connection. One episode after the other. So we did that. Brilliant. Really, really good. I've enjoyed them all in their own way. I can't necessarily say, one, you know, that was my favourite. I can't do that.
You realize as I'm asking, that's like asking you your favorite child or your favorite grandparent or something. Yeah. No, Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, I still have the T-shirt.
It was so good. It was perfect. I know obviously you've had Cesaro and Sheamus, but I like the dynamic of Tyson, the smaller man. Then you had obviously he's a powerhouse, isn't he, Cesaro? I mean, what is he, 240? But the power he's got is just incredible, isn't it? And that was my favourite tag team Cesaro's been in. If we're going to go into more current times, Nakamura and him shouldn't be together, in my opinion. I'm not the writer at WWE. It's just my 2 cents. I think they should be split off. But they have got the gold. So
yeah, I made my prediction on the True Heel Heat podcast. I was hoping that Lucha House Party would take the gold off of them. And I was expecting a bunch of apologies on Twitter on that Monday, but of course my Lucha House Party has it. And you know why I'm such a Lucha House Party guy is when they need something, you throw those guys in there and they're going to entertain. They got moves, they got skills. And I thought, and everybody looked at me like I was crazy, but I'm like, hey, Kalisto and Sin Cara did the Lucha Dragons and got the NXT titles. Why not? It would be a surprise, I think, to your average wrestling fan. Because your average wrestling fan would say, oh, Lucha House Party, they're nothing. I look at them and go, wow, these guys you got a lot of skill in there. So I'd like to see them rewarded. We've talked off camera, and I won't expect you to do this, but I've had a few guests on my podcast that it did not quite go well. So we have some unaired lockdown sessions. Have you run into some guests where it's not maybe not any fault of their own, but where you're like, man, I'm not getting anything back? You get that once in a while, or you all pretty good?
I think I was more panicky in the early days of it, and I've heard of people, friends who've listened to the show, and they can see a difference in me, the way I'm putting it together. But it's just, I was like panicky, But as we've got through it, and I've become more positive as we're going along, the confidence has grown, so it's all right. Stevie Ray was a bit of a tricky one because he couldn't recall stuff. It wasn't photographic memory from his times backstage in WCW, but we put it together afterwards. Obviously, we never go live; it's always edited and then put out the week after. But it was fine. I was a bit panicky. What's this going to look like? But it turned out okay. It was good, Justin.
Well, we'll have to exchange some notes off air here, because I got a few people that, if you haven't interviewed them, they're good, and they were keen to interview more. Like one of my favorite hidden gems, formerly known as Michael Tarver with the Nexus, but Monster Tarver we could have went on for, in fact, we're going to do a part 2, but we could have talked for hours.
Do the part 2, man. Do the part 2.
Great dude.
Yeah,
we're going to do a part. Have you had him on?
No, I've not had them on. Just while I'm thinking of guests I've had on, the Patriot, Del Wilkes.
Del Wilkes?
Absolutely fantastic. Really,
I want to
good.
get him on. I'm a massive AWA fan. And of course,
you've got to get him on. You've got to.
He was the trooper. So the only contact I have from him is through Facebook, but I'll reach out and see if he, doesn't want to be on. I always hesitate to do that on Facebook, but I always feel like if you don't ask, they don't know.
I'll send him a message, Justin. Not a problem. Yeah. Like he always on Twitter, follow each other on Twitter. So he posts stuff out that I've done. He shares stuff and that. He was brilliant. I had such a blast, obviously, going through WCW when he was with Marcus Bagwell, obviously. I remember that well. AWA, I don't think we got it over here in the UK back in the day. So my first time seeing him was obviously WCW then. Obviously when he went to WWF. And I tell you what, that feud with Brett had legs. Had he not got injured, there was more they could have done with that. Because Brett had come away from Austin and that could have carried on. But they went into that, didn't they? And, if the Patriot hadn't been injured and Brett hadn't left, that feud was going to go a lot longer, wasn't it? The perfect dynamic, US versus Canada.
Yeah, I was excited when they signed the Patriot, the WWE. I was super excited because he was just amazing. He tagged with Marcus Alexander Bagwell in WCW. So.
Yeah,
he was great.
Stripes. Good old Stars and Stripes.
Stars and Stripes, yeah. And Bagwell, I know he recently was in an accident and stuff, but
yes, I did read. Yeah,
Bagwell was a guy who I'd met years ago at a wrestling event, and then I was at another wrestling event in Pennsylvania, and the guest star was Marcus Bagwell was the big name, and when Bagwell's going, "Hey Justin, hey, come here and talk," I mean, you kind of feel like, how the hell does this guy remember who you are? a random show in Wisconsin to now
Yeah.
10 years later in Pennsylvania was just awesome. He's somebody I want to get on once everything has kind of cleared up and he's in the good. But
It's all about making an impression.
Yeah,
As that story tells you.
Speaking of your first time doing it, you do grow, don't you? Because
Absolutely.
my first interview I did, because we worked with Alicia, I said, hey, can I do she was very nice. I didn't have this background, but she was very cordial because she does interviews herself to come on and do it. And I can't hardly watch that one because my questions are as follows. Yeah, and I'm watching it back, and it's me. But I'm going, if that guy says one more time, I'm going to throw my laptop out the window. So I've gotten a little bit better. You get more aware. But I think that comes, my ums and ahs, Stuie, came with lack of confidence, I believe.
I think I've noticed I don't do as much now. I've noticed, but there's certain words I'll say time and time again. I noticed there'll be a word that I use. I'm trying to think. I've just said but yeah, it is. It's confidence. It is definitely. I'm with you on that. But I've had the same thing. We're our own harshest critics. That's a good way of putting it. I think when we watch ourselves, but others don't see it, but we see it, don't we? It's at the forefront when it's yourself. Very hard.
Well, it doesn't sound that bad, and I'll turn it on. No. I'm saying every 15 seconds.
It's just how we are, I think, man. We just want it to be the best it can possibly be. But yeah, as it pertains to experience, that's the word I use all the time. Obviously. That keeps cropping up. I've noticed over the last 4 or 5 episodes watching stuff back, and I put the cuts in to Chris, my editor. So I put all the cuts into him just to save him because I know where I've gone wrong and stuff like that. And I'm like, I've just said obviously 4 or 5, maybe 6 times, but it'll be another word the next time. I'll start repeating another word to you, and I just know what I'm like.
My phrase that I always sneak in there, whether I'm conscious of it or not, because usually I don't know how many interviews that I've finished and go on, man, there's like 6 or 7 questions I left laying on the table that I wish I would have asked. So I'm always trying to judge it by it. But my phrase, I'm always like, I'm trying to be very respectful of your time. So just a few more questions. And then that's usually like my pre-warning. And then I get down to like just a few more questions. And I'm asking, I don't know if you get like this, but like a Nikita Koloff, I'm asking so many great questions. And then I'm in my head, I'm going, great, that would be an awesome next question, but we go somewhere else. And I'm like, and then I'm like, man, I got all these, but I think it would be a never ending with some of these guys. Like I talked about Tarver. We'll do a part 2, but I guarantee I'll walk away from a part 2 going,
I need more.
We need a part 3.
More again. Yeah.
And it's not because it's not a surprise to anybody that I don't lay out this specific formula, that I just go in trying to have a good conversation with a guy. And I think that's awesome because if you click, we're going on for a long time and I want to do it again. But there are those ones that at like 15 minutes, I'm going, well, hey, thanks for coming on, So how long now, we'll back it up. Have you been a wrestling fan as long as you can remember?
1990, and obviously I know you'll probably know the platform from the UK when Jim Ross used to say, we're live on Sky box office this evening. Hello to our UK fans. Obviously, we're on the same feed, weren't we? But yeah, Sky got it in the late 80s. It was on terrestrial prior to that, but I was too young. I was born in 86, but I started watching it in 1990, and it was at my cousin's house. They had Sky. We didn't get Sky till 2000, and I badgered my dad for years. So there was a guy in my dad's work also that used to take the pay-per-views, and I'd get them a few days later. So I was quite lucky in that respect. I always managed to get hold of it in some form or another. If it wasn't at my cousin's, it'd be good old Dennis that my dad worked with. He'd take the events for me. So I always had access to it without having Sky, which was pretty cool. And I went to SummerSlam 92 in Wembley. I was there. I was in Wembley. So
I had Martin Goldsmith on right before that, talking about all that. That's a great event.
Unbelievable. I was 6, so it's just trying to remember stuff. But I remember Lennox Lewis with the Union Jack when Bulldog was coming out. And obviously, Brett, I was going for Brett. People have asked me this, were you going for Bulldog? It was a half and half, that 80 odd thousand. Part of that crowd wanted Brett, definitely.
That's one of those, I think no matter who won, you'd have been pretty happy because two great athletes going at it, but great for the Bulldog. So who caught your eye in 1990? Did you have a favorite wrestler besides, or was it always Brett? But
Heart Foundation, obviously, because they were still tagging up to that point, weren't they? 90. Brett obviously went off on his own, didn't he? Latterly into 91, didn't he? The Road Warriors, rest in peace. Joe Laurinaitis, obviously Mike Hegstrand as well. It's such a shame that they're both gone, and it's only Paul Ellering now, isn't it? It's sad news that recently, but obviously got to see them against IRS and DiBiase at SummerSlam 92. So you just got to keep hold of it, haven't you? Got to keep hold of it in the old brain, have it in your heart. The guys, we were able to see. So yeah, any of the tag teams individually, I used to hate the heels. Didn't get it as a kid. I was always there for the face guys, but you appreciate what the $1 Million Man was doing, Mr. Perfect, as you get older.
Yeah, he's the one I always go to. Isn't it something, those guys that you hated so much as a kid, but now you understand what a great job they did.
Unbelievable. Perfect should have been, I know it's been spoken about various times, he should have been world champ, man. He was
world champ.
Amazing. In AWA, sorry. Yeah,
I always go back to AWA.
Yeah.
Kurt Hennig in the AWA turned on my favorite wrestler, Greg Gagne. And that's when he started turning heel. He just slapped him in a tag match. And I was so angry. And then the girls at school that would watch kind of wrestling at that time with us, Kurt Hennig is so cute. And I go, how the frick can you think this guy who turned on Greg Gagne, and you think he's cute? Oh, I was just seething. And then you realize later on, hook, line, and sinker, he got me, and what a great thing. And then you spoke about Joe Laurinaitis. Last December, I was very lucky, very close to where I'm living currently. He appeared at a show and did a seminar. So I attended the seminar, and I got him to, I said, can I get ask you 5 questions? I got 5 minutes of his time and just asked him a few questions about, and I think I should, I'll share it with you personally if I didn't, but I think the boys on Wrestling Travel redid it on Twitter. They had edited out one of my questions, which was an AWA question, which I was kind of upset about it, but I understand that you only have a certain amount of time. But I asked him about the Hall of Fame and who should be in the Hall of Fame. The question that got edited out was about Jerry Blackwell. If you haven't got a chance to see who Jerry Blackwell is, a very large wrestler from the 80s, wrestled in the AWA. But I've got them on my phone, and I'll cherish it forever. I couldn't believe, in fact, when I woke up that morning over here, the morning after he had passed away, I messaged the boys from Wrestling Travel, going, Joe Biamonte, who does a lot, our Twitter and our socials. I said, Joe, I don't know if somebody's just joking around, because it's a sick joke, but in this day and age, people are doing stupid stuff. I'm like, could you try to verify it within 30 minutes?
He still looked fantastic. I know he's been doing stuff with SWE Fury with Teddy Long. He was at the Enforcer, wasn't he, for SWE? And I know Harvey Klein, who's doing his shows with all the guys, Don Morocco, Mike Drosy, who I've had on the show. Who else is there? Bill DeMott, we spoke about earlier. It's got Bill DeMott. Del Wilkes is on there. But they were meant to have Animal. Animal was coming on board to do a weekly show, and it's obviously not happened now. It's so sad. I cut in then. I apologise.
No. Listen, I cut in. I always blame it on the delay, but what happens, you get two minds like ours that I get excited about. I'm supposed to be asking you a bunch of questions, and here I'm going, it's like a sharing of knowledge type thing where we can go, hey, we're both essentially doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
I'm doing the interviews and you're doing, so it's really cool to have somebody. A lot of people would be like, why would you want to interview another podcaster? I'm like, are you kidding? I mean, I don't consider this a podcast, but it's so cool to learn from, because I always like to know, like I've asked you off camera, how do you go about getting some of your guests? And we've talked, and nothing I want to talk about on camera because I don't want fans to be bothering wrestlers. They get enough of that without us. Hey, just go to www. But yeah, what sticks out? Because obviously what would you say Stu's wrestling podcast, besides doing interviews? I mean, you're obviously giving wrestling knowledge and reviewing everything. Do you find it hard? I do. But do you find it hard to keep up with everything in the world of wrestling?
It's if we'd have been doing this, let's just say hypothetically, the internet was a thing and it was the juggernaut that it is today, 20, 25 years ago. All right, there was a lot of promotions, wasn't there? But they didn't have the TV time, did they? The independents, as we call them now. Yeah, it'd be totally different. But imagine we were doing it way back when, Justin, when it was just WWE, WCW. It's very hard, just to go back to your question, it's very hard to keep up. I've tried my best. I took MLW on when that started getting put on over here on Free Sports, but it's Ring of Honor, New Japan, all them. It's crazy. Then our UK independents, as you know very well, there's so many UK independents over here, and they're doing a fantastic job. All them promoters. It's not an easy task running the shows, is it? So I tip my hat to them, man. The amount of work that must go into it, I wouldn't have a clue, and all the, sleepless nights they must have trying to put shows together. I tip my hat to them, all the promoters over here and promoters worldwide that do it, day in, day out. Incredible.
I've been on True Hill Heat's podcast a couple times, and we've had SP3 on now, and that guy, I know that guy can't get any sleep. He so knowledgeable about everything. They ask me questions about New Japan, and I'm going, I've not even heard of this person. And I try. I go, I don't have New Japan World, but you try to keep up, and it's just tough. Let me talk about British wrestling for a little bit, because I'm coming to you from the great state of Wisconsin. I've been to a lot of independent shows recently over here, but the speaking out movement, we'll get controversial here for a minute. That was huge. And now you don't hear that much about it, at least not as much as we initially heard. But I think it's something that I want to try to keep in the forefront, because I've run into situations where I have reached out to people and have had stuff set up, and then they've turned up on the speaking out, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I just can't have you on. But what's been the latest over there?
The BBC, obviously, big broadcaster over it. Get your words out, Stu. I got tongue-tied then, Justin. I'll do that again, man. I'll do that again.
We don't edit shit out here. We go live, those Stu.
Right,
so.
Hey, that's fine, man. That's fine. BBC News, I'll say it correctly, quite simple, 3 letters, but I managed to cock it up. And they ran with three the independent girls. I can't think who it was now. Millie McKenzie was one of them.
Yeah.
And it was like just talking about it, and because there hadn't been much on the mainstream news for a while. I mean, it broke in June, didn't it? And it all went very quiet. But the authorities need to be involved a bit more, the police, etc. There's some serious stuff going on. I remained quite muted when it was all happening. It was all going on around me. Came out of a chat group for a promotion over here because the fans were making it 10 times worse, in my opinion. They were just regarbling all the stories that have been, and it was doing my head in. I feel bad for the victims, don't get me wrong, but the fans,
right.
The fans were at fault a little bit, Justin. In my opinion, everyone's allowed an opinion. It was just getting out of control. The fans caused a lot of shit, in my opinion. But the authorities do need to deal with it, because there's some serious, and it's the guys you just wouldn't expect. It's the guys that came up, It's abuse of power. It's abuse of power across the board, like
100%. And I'll agree with you, because I know you. You're not taking anything away from the victims and stuff. It's a terrible situation, but just like
absolutely.
everything, people are keyboard warriors, and
Absolutely.
Even in big time politics over here in the United States, you guys may have this one opinion of it. Everything is just crazy over here because of what you see on the news and what people say. Oh, this is horrible. I'm not going to get political with you on here because I'm going to go back to wrestling. But the consensus
not at all, mate. Yeah,
is a lot of people will hear all kinds of shit about our president right now and talk it up and, oh, he's this, he's so bad, he's this and that. And there's clips where, yeah, but a lot of stuff just gets blown out of proportion. This guy, I told everybody that at one point a few years ago, I said, man, Donald Trump could give everybody in the world a brand new $100 bill and somebody would complain that it had a little wrinkle in it and stuff like that. It was just to a point where he couldn't do anything. Correct. Now, getting back to the speaking out movement, I went on podcasts, and I'll still say it. I'll get it printed up. Back in the day, now I trained Stu 1997, so I'm much older than you. But the word out then between us guys in the business, protect the business.
Mm-hmm.
And what that meant is we're doing a little bit of a magic show here. I don't want to tell you. I'm going to protect the business. I don't want to tell you how we're doing all these magic tricks. But now I think protect the business takes on, and I'm very passionate about this, and I notice that I always talk with my hands when I do, but protect the business is now up to guys like you, me, and the true wrestling fans. We need to protect the business from these scumbags that are in it and causing trouble. Because if you take a really good look, when I went to train, I didn't just jump on the internet. I didn't know what the internet was hardly at that time. I got lucky and had to find a school. And when I found that school, it was $5,000 to train. Not $5,000, I'll pay you later, but you're paying every week and you better pay or you're out. And you're getting trusted with it. Now, I'll talk to some independent wrestlers and who trained you? Oh, Bob Smith. Oh, who trained him? That's Steve John. I'm like, I got to go back so far where I can find a name that I recognize. And now these people will go, I'm not a wrestling trainer. I never will be. I could give a few hints and stuff. But people are getting their training from Bob Smith and then going to people, oh, kid, you want to train? I can train you for $300-400. And now these fundamentals are lost. I've interviewed plenty of people that are backyard wrestlers, but they've known enough to go, I started doing this for fun in the backyard. I need to go get real training. And that's what I mean. We need to protect the business because the people that are getting in and trained for $300-400 are now, I don't have to have a license in my state. I could buy a ring tomorrow and be a promoter.
It needs to be that you have to have the license, like, especially this day and age. It's too easy, isn't it? It's too accessible. People want to start out and promote.
Right, and since we've gone down this thing of, hey, it's not a legitimate sport, it's more theater, then we're not paying as much taxes and this and that. And it just, our sport gets watered down with a bunch of people that really don't. And there's a lot of people that I know that are trained, Stuie, that I'll pick their brain about running a max and stuff, and I'm like, I'm still not sure they get it. I don't know everything.
No.
Far from it. Because I don't think nobody does. You got to always keep learning and stuff.
Yeah.
But there are certain things that make sense in the wrestling world. And that's why I say protect the business. And it's up to us fans, because I'm always going to be a fan no matter what I've done in the business. But it's up to us to protect the business from these guys. And that's why I feel like the speaking out movement still needs to be strong. And if you're in the business and you're nervous about me saying, keep that speaking out movement up, then maybe you need to check yourself. Why would you be nervous about that if you're doing everything the right way? I want to protect the business. But I want to stop ranting because I got to rant about something else. I cannot help but notice behind you, Powered 4 TV. Now talk to me about, I know what Powered 4 TV is, but now Stewie's Wrestling Podcast, are you on Powered 4 TV?
Yeah, I'm in association with them. So when it was Turnbuckle TV before the rebranding to Powered 4, got approached by Richard, who we spoke about. And he said, "Would you like to come on board? We'll house the podcast on the website. It'll be available." And just it was amazing that he wanted it to go on there. I was absolutely flattered because you just do what you do, don't you? And you don't become egotistical with it. Stay grounded. It was just lovely to be approached, and him and John Scott have been superb. They're always on hand. So yeah, looking forward to the future with these guys, and that they're expanding and they're going to get more promotions on there, video on demand. There's other podcasts on there as well. Wrestling with Johners, Keep It Locked with Simon Hill as well. There's plenty of stuff going on through Powered 4. Absolutely.
It's such a cool concept, very simple, but bringing everything together. Now, I've been lucky enough with Wrestling Travel to speak with Rich and John, and I've been able to forward them a couple promotions over here in the U.S. that have good production, and why not get noticed over there?
Absolutely.
Okay. Especially if we're going to be locked down. Like here's the thing. I'm watching TV, so I'll ask you, and I know I've talked to my guys at Wrestling Travel or over there in Manchester, but you guys are in the same boat where you guys now all of a sudden your cases of coronavirus seem to be going up while places over here we're opening up. It always seems like the U.S. and the UK, from talking to my brothers over there, that we're always on opposite ends. So what's the latest as we speak here in early October?
The county I'm in Wales, so I'm over the border. We're about an hour outside of Liverpool. I keep saying an hour and a half outside of Manchester. So yeah, I'm in Wales. I'm on the North Wales coast, and the county I live in, Conway, it's on a lockdown, as are the other counties. We can't come out of the county basically at the moment. It could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Boris Johnson will update. I think it's going to be every Thursday if something's going to change. But he said, as a country, as a whole UK, it's going to be very bumpy up until Christmas. And just to go back to you saying about the president and his critics, Boris Johnson gets a lot of unfair criticism, I think. Everyone moans he shouldn't be in power and all the rest of it. But he's only going off what the health officials are saying, the guys that are in the know. They call him a bumbling idiot, but he won't be in the position he's in. So yeah, people, it's opinions. They're allowed their opinion. Yeah.
And the thing that really made I try to stay. I don't talk politics much. No. I don't talk much on social media at all because I just read it and go, man, how pretentious do you have to be to? My opinion needs to be on here and a lot of times, you know what? I'm pretty confident in myself. But I'm like, man, I don't think anybody wants to listen to me go on and on about stupid stuff. But when they announced that Melania and the president had contracted the virus, the amount of people on there laughing about it and hoping that he did not recover really, really made me sick. Because I get sick of the political stuff back and forth anyway. But this was a whole new... Hey, I don't care. There's a lot of people in politics that I've never agreed with and never liked, but I never once went out in a public forum and wished them bad or death on them or anything. I think that's pretty low key. And I also think that we watch the news, we watch television, especially over here. A lot of the people, I don't even know if they know. Because I can switch to channel, Stuie, and it's a different story on each channel, depending on who they're affiliated with. Like, the amount of people, could you imagine, we talk about going back in the day and doing WCW and WWE, if we had that. But if we went back in the day before the internet and Facebook, like, I never heard these opinions, and half of these people wouldn't have their opinions if it wasn't based on reading it on the internet.
It's a pay. I'm like you, politics. I'm limited at best, my knowledge on politics, but I see, what I see, and normally it's through the phone. I don't tend to put Sky News on BBC News or main, broadcasters over here. It's just everyone's an expert. That's the problem, Justin.
That's the thing.
Everyone's an expert, and let them run the country, and let's see how they get on, how they fare. And if it had been Jeremy Corbyn, obviously the opposition leader, Labour in power, how would he have got on? Because it doesn't matter who's in power, people will still kick off regardless. So
I used to say, and I still do in private, I probably shouldn't say this in public, when people talk about voting and stuff, and I go, I think that please, the opinion I'm about to say is my opinion. In my opinion, here's my disclaimer. It's an idiotic opinion. Please think for yourselves. But I was of the opinion at the time that I'm like, they're all crooked. It doesn't matter who's in charge. The same shit is going to happen. So, but, I've never seen a political candidate like our current president. Not that turned this into like a political show, but where everybody kicked off about him. Like, even the other sides, I'm like, what is so bad that, I've seen so many corrupt politicians. But let's get off the politics. Let's do this. Let's be current. What did you get a chance? No, I didn't. But did you get a chance to watch the Takeover 31 last night? Or I know it happens early in the morning for you.
I've seen bits and pieces. It's well put together. They had the video boards round the ring on a lesser extent to the Thunderdome. Yeah, it was. From what I could see, it was solid. I've gone back to work in the last couple of months, obviously after being off for 4.5 months. So I was watching everything. I was able to watch everything every week. So I kind of skirt through. But yeah, it looked, from where I was standing, it looked good. Damien Priest and Gargano was good. And obviously he retained. Do you know the results? I don't want to.
Yeah, I did. I did watch. I did do the quick results.
Yeah. But, it was good. Shirai, and I'm trying to think of her name. Candice LeRae as well. Very, very good from what I saw. They're doing their best. They've done their best since March, haven't they? With the content across the board.
Did you hear the newest news? Did you hear what pay-per-view name is coming back?
Halloween Havoc. Am I right?
Yeah. Are you excited about that?
Shotzi Blackheart going to be presenting.
Yeah.
She should be wrestling because she's very good and she's different. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's cool to see one of the old school pay-per-views coming back. Absolutely, yeah, did see that.
I'm excited about that, and I hope that for a while they were doing Starrcade as just a house show, and now the kind of the feud they have with AEW and Cody Rhodes getting some of those names back. It's just interesting. Of course, I don't know if you can tell me, but I wouldn't even know. Like, I don't know if Halloween Havoc was a Dusty Rhodes or who came up with that name.
So they've been saying online it was Dusty's brainchild. Like, so it's just they're doing their best, aren't they, under the circumstances? It was funny with Florida watching AEW in Jacksonville this past week. I watched it a couple of days ago. No fans in the stands again, though. They've been having the fans in, haven't they, with their masks and all that. But they were making enough noise around ringside, Justin, the wrestlers, the talent. But yeah, it's obviously the rules have changed, have they? I didn't know as it pertains to Florida.
Yeah, well, a lot of Florida and some of these guys aren't requiring masks anymore. But what's happening is certain places the virus is flaring up again. I'm in Wisconsin currently, and it's just in the news every day that we're getting more and more cases. But then, this was read on Twitter, so take it with a grain of salt. I read something a few weeks ago that I think it was Nashville or Memphis had opened up in August or September, the restaurants and bars, and they never turned in a report on the coronavirus. And they said, we didn't turn it in because we had so few cases that we didn't think anybody was going to believe us, and that it would have been such a chaos.
Yeah, man.
I'm just saying, hey, be honest with us. Let's just, and we're not there, are we, in the world where we can just go, hey, can you imagine if we lived in a world where everybody was like, all right, let's just get along and let's defeat this thing? and figure out how we can get back to normal, because
the minority, as in regards to over here, the minority are ruining it for the majority. The majority are following the rules. It's the minority. It's these parties that have been going on, man. You know, it's crazy. I just want the wrestling back with fans.
That's what exactly in wrestling travel. This is gonna be labeled, instead of my interview with Stu's wrestling podcast, it's gonna be like the political lockdown sessions, because
we're not political. Just
we're not political. Two guys who don't want to talk politics talking politics.
It's gone that route somehow, and we're not. I can't stomach politics, but you know, I've got an opinion, like a small opinion. But sorry,
like you were saying, they're doing the best they can during this pandemic time, because look at we lost our sports over here. Everything was done, but wrestling kept going. Wrestling is like the cockroach in the nuclear war. We kept going with everything, and thank goodness. Like, I've had my opinions on, oh, this is kind of crap, but listen, it's better than having nothing. I've enjoyed
the Hurt business, just going back to WWE.
Yeah,
I like it, and they've always. I'm gonna nick this off Mike Mad Dog Angus, who's done some stuff.
He doesn't care.
He said, he goes, have you ever noticed, this was last year, Lashley's always involved. He was like, whether it be the mid card. Anyway, going back to the Hurt business, because I'm waffling, it's just cool to see it as a heel faction, and they're having all the stuff, obviously, with Ricochet and stuff of that nature. But then Retribution come in, and they're the faces. I like that dynamic, where they'll come up against Retribution and be the faces. You know, they'll like be tweeners. I like that. I like it, Justin. I'm enjoying that.
I'm only laughing because it's been, for the last, I don't know how many weeks, I've been asked about Retribution, and I'm like, I was sick of them 4 weeks into it, because you're not doing anything, and you're not doing anything new. I love Donovan Dijak, or Dijakovic. I love Mia Yim.
But don't put them in that. Just
it's like they were good on their own, but whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah.
What has your opinion been? And they've backed off, thank goodness. They started off with AJ Styles and The Undertaker, which I'll give that a pass. But beyond WrestleMania weekend, some of the cinematic matches that we have, have you enjoyed them, or did you like them and they kind of got
perfect? I sound like everyone else, but you know, it's my opinion as well. Broken record here, Justin.
Yeah.
Superb for Undertaker doing that match. Cena and Bray, it was okay in my opinion, but a lot of people loved it. But the Boneyard was so well done out of the two. I know it was two different ways of doing it. You know, they couldn't be samey. They had to make them distinctive, didn't they? But absolutely, what a way to showcase the Undertaker, if it is his last ride, last hurrah.
But now, if we carry on further to like the swamp match with Braun and Bray,
right?
Where were you there? Were you like, still, this is cool, or were you?
It was all taken. You know, they've extended off it, but it was all taken from Final Deletion all them years ago,
which I actually enjoyed.
It was superb,
I didn't want to like Final Deletion. I did not want to like it, and I was like, I got to see it.
It was so crazy. It was brilliant.
Not a cinematic match, but a match, the eye for an eye match with Mysterio and Seth Rollins. Like, I wanted to be the one losing my eyes. Like, what are you thinking? Even before you do that, like, you got to have an end game. And if one of these guys is going to lose his eye, like, what, you know, and they expect us to forgive and forget, which we always do because we're fans and we love the business. But I was like, don't make us forgive and forget that one. But what did you think of that whole angle?
There was so much negative towards it. It was just OTT, but it's WWE, and they're trying to put content together. I don't mind Raw Underground. I'll go back to the eye for an eye. But I know some people hate it, but I can see what they're trying to do. But someone said, how can Dolph Ziggler go over against that guy in the street fight, street fight way. But I don't know. I like Raw Underground. It's something different. They're trying. I know it's Fight Club-esque, and that was 20 years ago. But they're trying stuff, Justin, aren't they? You can't.
Yeah, they are.
They've got to put content. They've got to put content together. You put them all together. It's 6 hours NXT, SmackDown, and Raw. I don't envy any of them writers and production meetings when they've got to come up with the stuff. I know people slate them, but that's a tough job. That's a tough job, and you've got to put all that TV together.
Right, and then Vince McMahon comes in 2 hours before and says, "This is all crap. Do it again."
Yeah.
I had a feeling, and I said this before, we've gotten back to where we have some fans, but the fans, not just in wrestling, but in sports, are a huge part of the event. So I said, one of these days, hopefully a year from now, you and I can go, all right, we're going to go into a deep dive and watch some of the stuff that they put on without fans. Because I got to be honest with you, as much as I've lived, breathed, sleep the business and love it as a fan, I couldn't watch. Like, I could not turn on the TV and watch another match with no fans. So I always say there's probably going to be some hidden gems or some hidden spots in here that a few years down the road we're going to go, hey, that was genius. But how did you? Were you able to? I mean, even though I had nothing else to do, I couldn't turn on wrestling with no fans for more than maybe 5-10 minutes. Were you in the same spot, or were you like a much better guy than I was?
Going back to WrestleMania, it was hard. It was hard. It was hard going. That was, but I enjoyed Rhea Ripley and Charlotte. Saying we've obviously spoken about the cinematic matches, but my favourite match of the weekend was them two. I loved it. It was superb, absolute brilliant. Told the story. It was cool. It was cool to see them going at it. But yeah, I do see what you're saying in regards to no fans. It was hard to watch. It was hard to watch.
Like I said,
I echo you on that.
Probably some really genius things that happened on Raw that we'll look at in a couple of years. But I want to be respectful of your time. So a few more questions.
You're good, man. As many as you want to ask me, it's fine.
Who has been, within the last, let's say, 6 months or currently, can you name some of your, obviously Bret Hart's been in the past, but you got a favorite wrestler in these current times?
You've got to go AEW. There's so many. I could list so many. Obviously MJF. I love him. I love the guy. I know he's been, brewing for a while for the other companies. MLW on the independents. I love the guy, man. There's no off button. There's no off button.
Absolutely.
It's like the old school. It's like the old school days. You could teleport him back to the 80s, 90s when it was protected. Going back to you saying about the
he's a heel.
Unbelievable. I think they're doing a good job with Ricky Starks. Obviously, we've seen Ricky Starks on NWA. I know he'd been around the independents prior to that. I think they're doing, him and Darby Allin. That's a good feud that they've got going on there. Who else, man? The Bucks, obviously, love the Bucks, but they're not at the forefront as such, are they? FTR are running with the tag belts. It'd be interesting to see Hangman Adam Page as well. It'd be interesting to see what's going to happen with him and Omega. I think that's going to be leading to a singles match, isn't it? So, big fan of Hangman. Think Ring of Honor could have booked him better when he was in TV title matches over the years. Always knew he had something, and I think we've got to see it a bit more in AEW. They've showcased him well. In terms of NXT, I'm going on and on here.
Right, that's good though.
It's just your usual guys that everyone gravitates to. Adam Cole. It's just when are they going to come up? When are they going to come up? That's the thing. They need another faction. I think the Undisputed Era. Cool. It's cool to see Kyle O'Reilly as well taking on Balor. Watched that when we were obviously saying about TakeOver. It was nice to see him, not in a tag team capacity. Seeing him in singles. Obviously, he was in singles years ago, wasn't he? He was a good singles wrestler. And obviously tagging with Bobby Fish back in Ring of Honor as well. So, yeah, there's so many guys, Justin, I could list. There's just so much talent out there. I love them all. I love them all. I respect every guy that gets in the ring because I couldn't do it. And having to put that character together And when you've seen that many personas over the years and trying to stand out now, it must be so hard because we've seen so much stuff over the last, 30 years of me watching it. You've seen so many personas and guys. So to get over now, it's tough. It must be tough for them trying to cultivate their talent.
One of the things that I've never actually said it publicly, but internally and behind closed doors is, I'm a big music fan. And if you get into any type of music and like where they put out a CD, of course they wouldn't do this with streaming now, but where they have, let's say your favorite band, but now they're going to put out this CD of, here's a couple different takes of the same song. And it baffles my mind, and I'll compare this to wrestling, that you can have the greatest song with the greatest lyrics, but when you change that tempo, slow it down or speed it up, now you got a totally different song, and now that one's a hit. Where you had everything in there in the mixing pot, but it take this certain little thing to make it a hit. Just like wrestling, a lot of times these guys have all kinds of talent, and now you just change their dynamic and put them in AEW or put them somewhere else and tweak it just a little bit, and now it's a hit. Because I think of that, how many people were so close to breaking out. And that's why, going back to my speaking out movement, I would really love to get rid of half of these untrained carny people, because now how many people have decided to not pursue their dream of pro wrestling because of bullying or some other aspect? Like, how many stars were maybe robbed of, and we got this mediocre? And I know it can all work both ways because it's such, and I know you can say that for anything in life, but with wrestling characters
absolutely.
I'm like, the Beatles, for example, released the anthologies, and that's not a really good example because it's not big in my head, but I have heard different bands release like their different or hidden thing, and it's like, man, that track really sucked, but the development from where it started to where it is this big hit, I mean, that's pro wrestling to me.
It was cool to have your perspective on it, Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Last question here for you, because I'm going to risk when I turn this back into Danny at Wrestling Travel, he's going to be like, great lockdown session. Could you let Stuie talk next time? Because
I've said plenty, mate. No, it's good. It's a conversation. As you said, it's a conversation, not necessarily an interview. Yeah.
So this is my most important question I always ask fans watching this. Where can they catch you on social media? What platforms? Where can they catch the podcast? What platform? I've seen now, so they must be for sale somewhere, but I've seen the Stu's Wrestling Podcast t-shirts. So you must have some merch or something. Go ahead and let us know how we can catch you up, how we can follow you, and where we can buy merch.
I've got a page, not a group on Facebook. It's as a page. It's just type Stu's Wrestling Podcast into Facebook. You'll find us on there. At StuieP1, which is STUIEP1 on Twitter. And on Instagram, it really annoys me that you can't have the old apostrophe. I'm trying to think what I'm saying here. It's Stu's, but it says Stus because you can't put the thing in. Stus Wrestling Podcast. Really annoying that is. Just let me put it in. So yeah, I've been referred to as Stus Wrestling Podcast. It really, really gets me that buzz. Why you can't do that on the Instagram? But yeah, we're all over the place, and also the podcast platforms. Now we're housed on Buzzsprout. We're on more apps and stuff. We've just been cleared on Amazon Music and Alexa, TuneIn. Obviously YouTube for the videos, but we do more views and stuff on Apple, Spotify, but we're everywhere in terms of podcast places and apps. You can find us literally anywhere. If you type it in, we're on it now. We're across the board, and it's great. And then in terms of the merch, I can order some more t-shirts if people want them. I know some people are after them, and that's through Pins and Knuckles, who sponsor TNT Extreme Wrestling in Liverpool. They're great quality. They've washed and washed. Everyone's really happy with them. So yeah, it was cool to put the t-shirts out. It was something different, Justin. bit of merch.
No, I love t-shirts.
Little bit of merch. And when Jody Fleisch asks you for one, you've got to oblige and send one over.
Give him one, yeah. What a guy, good guy. And
man. Yeah, and Powered 4 TV, just absolutely brilliant. You know, it's another platform for us. And as I uttered earlier, just great on the part of Richard and John. All
I gotta say, if I was, no matter, I say if I was in the UK, but no matter where I am in the world, that would be kind of your one-stop shop for everything, especially other podcasts going on, all the different promotions, and plus, you know, the change was from we're going to have more than just in-ring sports. So doing great things, simple concept, but hard to get moving and off the ground. So it's going to be good. It's going to be good going forward. Absolutely, they're great. And as I say, content and old content as well. Older promotions that have been and gone, that they're on there, that they're being housed on there, so you can go back. So there were some great matches in like the mid 2000s that you can go back and watch. So many free matches. We were doing Free Match Friday for a while, and it's slowed up because they're obviously busy launching this. But we've got some, Bryan Danielson. We had Davey Boy Smith Jr., Harry Smith on there. We've had Lance Storm, Millie McKenzie. We've had all kinds of stuff that you go back, and thank goodness they got that stuff on tape. It's so good. Yeah, it's brilliant, especially for younger fans. Maybe when they were kids, you know, they didn't know what was going on. To go to it now, and it's accessible. It's brilliant, mate. That's what it's all about. One family, one community, aren't we? You know, right. That's what it's all about, man. All right, Stuie, I want to thank you for joining us. We will do this again, my friend. Absolutely. Down the road. I'd love to come. Love to come back on, Justin. Yeah, this is, like I said, this is one we could go on and on. And like I said, I love when we might be talking over each other, but because we're passionate and we got a lot to say. So from one journalist to another, it was a pleasure to have you on. I like that. I like being called a journalist. Yeah, me too. Somebody called me it accidentally. Called me a journalist. And I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take it. No, pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me on, man. I've loved it. It's been great. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Cool. We look forward to catching more of your stuff and having you on again. So see, this is how my ending is not as good as my beginning. So I'm gonna log off. No problem, man.